Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fitness Without Filter with me, Richard Palfrey. I'm talking to Dave Flowers today in Manchester. I've known Dave for some time. We had a conversation a few years ago on my audio version of the podcast. He's a great bloke, runs a very successful PT business in Manchester. We're going to have a talk today about a few things. So I already know you, Dave, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, cheers for having me on, Rich. Appreciated. I'm David Flowers. I'm a personal trainer based out of Manchester. I've been a PT now for 12 years, pretty much now, coming up to 12 years. It's pretty daunting when I say it like that, but yeah, it's and pretty much full-time coaching still. I'm someone who's kind of still on the gym floor after all these years. I kind of now have more of a senior role where I'm kind of mentoring the coaches that work under me at the facility that I'm at. So a lot of my work is kind of coaching the general population with general health and fitness goals, body composition goals, 30, 40-year-old busy professionals, pretty much. That's kind of my demographic. And I also do a lot of education with the trainers, just making sure that they are kind of providing the standards and the coaching services to the individuals that walk through the door. So that's kind of how my time is split at the minute. And to be honest, that's pretty much my life. It literally is just training on the brain 24/7, and I don't really do much more outside of that anymore at my age now at 35. So
At your age.
I
At
know.
your age.
I know it sounds crazy saying that. It's probably because I'm so used to being with trainers that are younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually nice to speak to you, Rich, because you're a bit older than me. So I feel a bit young for once. It's good.
Yeah, because I've just turned 43. Yeah, rub it in. Cheers. Cool. All right, buddy. Thank you. Okay, so we've been back and forth a little bit between us before we started recording today, so we know what we're going to talk about. And I say, and we both know that the market that we think needs addressing for the most benefit of the population at the moment is the general population, the broader scope, rather than the specialist niches. But that's a thin market. So what do you think would be, or let's elaborate on the strategies of getting people into resistance training? Because I know there's a lot of resistance to getting people to that point, even from the off.
Yeah, I think when it comes to who I train, and it's strange really because myself and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of personal trainers train who I train. Yet there seems to be a lack of education around resistance training for that population, which is, like I say, is baffling because that's most people who are
Yes.
basically seeing a trainer, personal trainer in private gyms, commercial gyms, and there is a lot of education on other populations, whether that's athletic populations, um, compared to actually general population who we're speaking about, the typical busy professional who has a 9 to 5 job, who's got kids, who's stressed to the eyeballs with work. Like, it's not really tailored towards those, a lot of the education. And I think that's a bit of a problem, first and foremost, because it's leading trainers and people in general not to actually know what to do in the gym. And ultimately, I think with all the noise from outside outside people in the fitness industry, especially because that's where it's kind of coming from, talking about training for athletes and things like that, or hyper specific physique competitors, bodybuilders, there is what it's maybe doing is just kind of making the barrier higher to entry
Mm-hmm.
because all the education, all the information out there on Instagram and things is kind of specific to those populations, which is potentially leaving the people that I work with and maybe people listening to this in general population in general a little bit kind of like, well, I can't do that, or I don't really know where to start because there's just not the education there. And I think a lot of it does come down to that and actually giving people not too much information, but the application of what they can do. And I think that's where I think it's missing a little bit, is because there is lots of information out there, but there's just not application out there where you can actually say to somebody, this is what you can actually do. This is what you can go ahead and do. This is
Mm-hmm.
how you probably need to train. You don't need to train like this or like that. And just giving people that kind of easier barrier to entry would be where I kind of, my opinion on that at the minute within the fitness space and in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people that they're either new to the PT industry or have only been in it a few years, they don't see it as sexy to think of the average person that they might get coming through the door. The person who's relying on them to be their sole sort of mentor and developer. I think that's an issue there. But like you said, you've also got the general public think, I only see the outliers of the fitness world. You know, the Instagram models, the roids, the lycra, the glamour. And you go, I don't belong there. So they're already put off from the off. I had a conversation with my latest episode of the podcast with a guy called Kelvin, who's a 63-year-old personal trainer. He's ex-Navy. And he was saying the same thing about the older population. They don't relate to the health and fitness industry, and no one out openly goes and talks to them. It's
Yeah.
not seen as an appealing prospect to deal with the average person.
Yeah, and again, it's baffling, but there's a lot of trainers who actually don't understand who they train or who they're
Mm-hmm.
going to train. And I
Yes,
think
yeah.
that's again, I don't know whether it's an ego thing. I don't know whether it's the fact that they've just kind of been sold this dream that they get into the industry, they're going to be training athletes or actors and actresses, and from experience training them people personally on the off time that I have done, they're the fucking worst clients anyway. Um, and I
You
would
said
much.
it.
I mean,
I was going to go there.
yeah. I mean, and for me, it's the people that really truly value it and actually
Mm-hmm.
need it in their life. And yeah, that's what I'm really passionate about is that actually getting people to do the thing and kind of showcase to them the benefits that they can get from this, and that
Mm-hmm.
they, there's just so many benefits that we can get from it, from participation in resistance training, the importance of building muscle and all building cardiovascular fitness, etc. It's just people want to know, okay, well that they know that, but it's like, okay, what does that mean for me? What does that look like for me? And
Mm-hmm.
how can I ultimately build it in my life? And like I say, it doesn't help because people in the actual fitness industry who are there to help these people do it, they don't really know how to do it themselves. Like they
Yeah.
actually don't know how to train a beginner who
Mm-hmm.
just walks into the gym, because what a lot of trainers will do is just train them like they train themselves, or they'll put them through a training protocol that they're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
they'll overlook the fact that this person in front of you just wants general health and fitness. That
Yes.
is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you try and push on them for your own agenda or your own transformation you want to put on your own Instagram account to get likes yourself because it's your own insecurities, because you're not looking at the person in front of you. And that's something that I'm quite big on is
Yes.
is
Yeah.
really identifying who it is that I'm actually helping, and giving them the confidence and building self-efficacy over time working with me, that they can hopefully do this forever and keep it a part of their life through the strategies, the tools, the tactics that I've actually educated them on.
That is yeah, that is the disconnect there, isn't it? It's the understanding of the specificity for the individual, but also the fact that teach people the minimal effective intervention. Don't try and go, hey, you want to get a little bit fitter cardio wise? Let's get you on a marathon program. It's like, no, 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 no. Let's get the person who speaks to you to do what's relevant to them and do just enough to move the needle and go from there. I think with that the problem comes in large scale because, like you're saying, PTs aren't educated to understand what can be effective individual programming because they're told or taught just do cookie cutter programs all the time.
Yeah,
Because the
yeah,
time saving for the company who hires them, or if they're self-employed, they just don't want to put the effort in. Not all the time, but a lot of the time.
yeah. No, I mean, I think a lot of the education out there for trainers, especially, like I said before, it's just on what they're interested in,
Yes, yeah.
or what or their bias to. They'll go on courses to learn from physique bodybuilders who train physique fucking bodybuilders,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where they're getting the knowledge from. And it's like there's nothing wrong with the principles of probably what these guys teach them. It all comes down to consistency, hard work, putting in quality sets, progressive overload, educating on what actually matters when it comes to training. But it's the demographic that they don't actually work with, or they're learning from some biomechanics guru who's basically going to teach them about more kind of things to why to avoid certain exercises. And it's like that your demographic needs to do the opposite of that. We need to get them meeting the physical activity guidelines, not fearing them away from certain exercises. So it's just kind of like understanding all that stuff really. And I think it does ultimately start there. So the people are putting out the right information to what people actually need. and it's kind of seems to me that it's just only getting a little bit more confusing for people. I reckon with all the new kind of fancy functional fitness stuff out there, and everyone doing a high rocks now, and
Yeah.
it's literally there's like everyone's a fucking high rocks coach now, and it's just like like yeah, I've been in the like I said, I've been in the industry for so long. I've seen it come and go. I've
Yeah.
seen these things happen, yes, it's progressing, but at the same time, I still think there's a missing gap here to actually just what normal everyday people actually need for their actual goals, and trainers having the
Yeah. I
skills to
mean,
deliver that.
that is, I think, a large part of the issue, because you only got to look at, I say, the tribalism that comes with the PT slash higher competency average person. I mean, not even average. The people that are seriously into high rocks, for example. I mean, high rocks, let's face it, was a copy and paste. How can we do CrossFit for ourselves franchise, which is what it is. They just changed the structure of the exercising. Now there's a lot of pushing and pulling, whereas CrossFit didn't used to do that. Not to mention that everybody who pushes that kind of training used to be a CrossFit individual 3 or 4 years ago. So
Yeah,
they've got the training background behind them. They've got the physique. They've got the strength. So when they go, oh, I do this, I look awesome, and then they try and teach the average Joe to do it, you get the same problems that I used to see with my rehab clients, or those clients who had gone and done CrossFit before I got them as a PT client, going, I've done this and I have hurt myself, or I've been so discouraged by it, I don't know if I can actually get fit.
yeah. I think I'm a fan of like anything that gets people doing something. I'm definitely I back it. I guess it's more just a line of like, is it now kind of like everybody's just kind of forgetting about the everyday person?
Mm-hmm.
A kind of, where it's kind of like we've said, it's not sexy to help that 60-year-old client anymore, but it's
Yeah,
sexy to help the person who's doing high rocks.
yeah,
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm very, like, each to their own, and whatever you enjoy. And if it gets you doing it, if it even got the 60-year-old training doing high rocks, fair play. I'm about that. But I think it's more from an educational lens of
mm-hmm.
of education for trainers, where they're kind of trying to niche down to that. When you like look at who you train every day, like let me see your clients, and I guarantee most of your clients will be the person that you're not learning more about helping, because you're too
Yes,
busy
yeah,
focusing on what's trendy in the industry, or what, like I said, what you enjoy as a trainer.
mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where where I think a big disconnect is from the personal training side, which ultimately and hopefully will give some application today with what we're speaking about. And
Sure,
then if the trainers are not providing that information for these people, then who actually is? And I think for me, my big values are getting people to exercise and getting people to participate, especially in resistance training.
mm-hmm.
I want people to lift weights. I want people to know the health benefits of lifting weights, and I want to show them how they can actually do it practically. I want to show them time efficient strategies because they've got a busy job and kids. And I ultimately want to bring those barriers down so they can meet those physical activity guidelines rather than create more barriers. And
Mm-hmm.
that's ultimately the fitness industry in a nutshell. It actually creates more than solves, in my opinion. And yeah, that's what kind of my values are as a trainer.
Yeah, no, and I'd say those are more than valid given the current state of the fitness industry. I really would, because like you say, when it comes to the average person, one of the key things they're always going to come back to, it's that adaptation into their lifestyle. It's as I know you've been hot on just lately in your social media, it's time efficiency, because unless you're you're a dependent of someone who's providing for you because they're your spouse or your parent or whatever else, you haven't got hours and hours and hours to casually saunter into a gym environment, mooch about, do whatever, and leave and carry on with your day. It's got to be efficient and productive.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then that's there. These are just ways that we can kind of like get people doing the thing, because one of the biggest issues for people is that training isn't necessarily at the forefront of their life. It's just
Mm-hmm.
something that they know they need to add on for those goals of health and fitness. And you'll get other people in the fitness industry speaking, saying things like, "Oh well, you clearly don't want it enough. You have to really prioritize this." And I agree to some extent. Like, but majority of the people that I train, they don't want the extremes of fitness. They literally just want the very little amount that they can do that they're going to get the health benefits from.
Sure.
And that is kind of every time I meet them and we sit down for a consultation, and most people's goals, especially those individuals whose values are different than the 20-odd-year-old bodybuilder, that these people have values of, I just want to be around longer for my grandkids. I just want to
Yes. Yeah.
be able to pick up my son and not have back pain all the time. Like, they just want more the general health and fitness. And then we'll elaborate on what that is to them. What does that look like to them? What does fitness mean to you? Because fitness to me is completely different. Like, fitness
Yes.
to me is probably a bit crazy compared to what normal people would think. But I'm the weirdo in essence. Like, I'm the weirdo. I'm the one who's like obsessed with training, thinking about training and whatnot, and doing it. And a lot of people are not. So we just need to kind of be a little bit more understanding and more empathetic, and kind of give people solutions to their potentially effective solutions to their problems. And that comes down to making it time efficient potentially for those people who don't have 6 hours to spend in the gym a week. They might just have 2 hours, and that is enough. The research is supporting that is enough. That is the kind of the minimum effective dose.
Mm-hmm.
That is meeting the physical activity guidelines for strength training. And even deeper than that, it's like, I did a talk on this, I think it's like 2 years ago, to a recruitment company. And I was saying, like, you can actually build muscle with one set per muscle group per week if you're untrained. And this was researching 60-year-olds, and they was like, what? I can do that? I'm like, yes. Yeah, if you're doing nothing now and you do one hard set per week per muscle group, you will get gains. Like, yes, you're not going to get gains of what some of the research is showing for maximum hypertrophy, which might be 10 sets per muscle group per week plus,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want maximum hypertrophy. You just said you want health benefits from having more
Yeah.
muscle. So why don't you could potentially get away with doing less and still get, even if it's 40% of the gains, it's better than 0% gains that you was getting by not even doing anything. So it's
Yeah.
those little things like that kind of need to be, I feel, need to be pushed out there a little bit more for the average person who
Mm-hmm.
wants these health benefits, but they're just unsure of how to get them, or think that they're way off even making the start because they're not doing the crazy amounts everyone else is doing.
So again, because I know your social media, um, look, that fits in nicely with what you were talking about the other day, which is 2 sets is the new 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like everyone's obsessed with these 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets, 6 sets, when it comes to resistance training and whatnot, and what people need to do. But it's for me, when I'm writing somebody's program or whatnot, I'll kind of build in flexibility, and this is kind of a different conversation, but it's just ultimately trying to create autonomy for the individual so they have competence. So when I write a program, I might say 2 to 3 sets.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got more time, do 3 sets. If you do 2 of them sets and they're really hard sets and you feel like you've given it your all, just do 2 sets. And it's just kind of having that. What that does is just give people the self-efficacy that I can actually do this, and it's absolutely fine doing that. And I would much rather people do 2 really hard sets of 3, 4, 5 really easy sets. So because I want to encourage people to actually, if they do have a muscle building goal, especially, like, encourage them to actually put effort into their training, because we know training closer to proximity to failure is more beneficial to building muscle. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, on the flip side of that, you can still build muscle with lower intensity, like even 5 out of 10. So if for your listeners, if they're not familiar with like RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion, 0 is like no effort whatsoever, 10 is maximum effort. So people can actually build muscle from 5 RPE,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that you can kind of meet in the middle. It can be hard enough for you, and you can still build muscle, especially if you were a beginner. And again, it's kind of the same thing. It's like people are seeing people like on YouTube or on the squares of Instagram lifting really heavy weights, taking sets to failure. And some people might just look at that and go, I don't fucking want to do that to myself. And that is absolutely fine. Like I
Yeah,
said
of course.
before, I'm the weirdo. I fucking do that. And
Hmm.
I'm the freak. My mum would never do that to herself, but she doesn't need to. She doesn't
Yes.
need to do that. She can do it with much less intensity. She's a newer trainer. She's a beginner, and she's going to get tremendous amount of health benefits just doing it. And then I'll educate her on how to progress that over time, add more weight, more reps, and I'll educate her on the kind of the principles of resistance training for building muscle, which is very important for her. She's 65 years old, for reducing her chances of sarcopenia, bone health, all that stuff. But you can just do this. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be the extremes of 5 sets of ridiculous high intensities where your eyes are popping out your head. Definitely doesn't need to be like that.
Well, that's where the education side of it really should be, like we've been saying, taught more to trainers, but also made available to the public, because the anti-aging benefits and the ability to push natural degeneration further down the time frame is very, very evident for you, people like you and I who've been in the industry a long time. We know that's the case. When it comes to like bone density, joint health, just postural strength, avoidance of bad backs, which is the sort of like the benchmark ailment that people start to experience and go, oh no, I can't do anything now because I have a bad back or I experience discomfort, when it should be the opposite.
100%. And with resistance training as well, like it's the safest activity we can do. Like bodybuilding style resistance training is the safest thing we can do, even compared to like novice running. The injury rates over 1,000 hours from novice running to
Hmm.
resistance training are like drastic. Like 4 times the injury rate from novice running to bodybuilding style resistance training. And that's not saying running's bad, you shouldn't do it. It's just saying that resistance training is ridiculously safe. And if you put onto you doing it with somebody like a qualified trainer, my hunch is that it'll make it even safer to do. So I think there is a lot of education around that side as well, because it all comes back down to barriers like we've been speaking about. If people think it's unsafe, they're not going to want to do it. And it's that education around what benefits you're going to get from doing it. The absolutely way outweigh the effects of doing it and thinking you're going to get injured. Like training, resistance training is probably the number one thing that everybody should be doing to some
Hmm.
capacity in it. And again, this is not saying you need to turn into an absolute gym head. Nobody's saying you need to be like us guys who might train 4, 5, 6 days a week. No one's saying that. And that's what a lot of people think when you say you need to lift weights. They think, oh, well, I don't want to be like you. I've had that with
Yes.
clients
Yeah.
a million times. Oh, I don't want to be like you. I'm like, oh, that's cheers, you cheeky bastard. But I'm like, part of me is like, you don't need to be like me. But what you need to do, you need to do this for the benefits that it's going to give you X, Y, Z, and then and start to reframe it in a way that where they see the benefits for them and relay it in a way things that they value and actually make them aware that this is something they need to focus on because it, as an industry as a whole, I think it's definitely changing. But a lot of people just think of fat loss rather than
Yes.
muscle
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
and muscle gain and muscle gain for me is the biggest thing that people need to be thinking about. Like when it comes to this stuff, it's like that is my number one health marker right there is muscle gain rather than fat loss and then what we can kind of showcase the benefits that by having more muscle and
Hmm.
what it can actually bring to the table for everybody, no matter how much they do. And like I said before, you can do very little and still get some fantastic health benefits.
It's the conversation that you and I would have had with so many potential clients or actual clients that we then sign on to our books, and it's coming at the same argument or the same objective from our side, which is the intelligence side, versus the would-be client's only idea of what fitness might be. They'll come to us and go fat loss,
Mm,
whereas we're trying to say to them, build muscle, develop your muscular bodies, build strength, because that has to happen first, and your body fat will decrease as your muscle bodies increase. That's how it's supposed to work, and you get all the extra additional health benefits that will carry long on to your future. But the premise of building rather than losing is the tipping point of I don't want to get bigger, I don't want to add, I can only lose.
mm,
And you try and fight that argument. I found that argument especially an issue with some of my female clients in the past. especially when they start, as I know you'll know, the initial experience of working in a gym. Oh, I'm getting bulky, I'm getting bigger. Like, whoa, 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 you've just started. Your muscle mass has just started to react to the stimuli. Give it a few more weeks and you will see the switch. But it's
Yeah.
getting them through that initial fear, that removal from comfort that they're so used to potential change.
Yeah, yeah, it is all just that side of it's just kind of education, isn't it? With the person who kind of has these beliefs, where I'll often just kind of, instead of shooting them down in essence and be like, oh, that it doesn't happen like that,
Yeah.
I'll
But you do it diplomatically,
I'll
yeah.
kind of use some form of humor with that and be
Yes,
like,
yeah.
well, I've been training for 15 years and I'm not that big, like like I wish that was the case because I should be massive. And they
Hmm.
start laughing. Then I'll be like, look at my calves. I train them 4 times a week, and look at the state of them. Like I wish it was that easy. And it's more a case of just understanding where they've got maybe this education from,
Hmm.
where they heard that from, and then kind of go reverse engineering that thought process, and like we said, just kind of showcasing the benefits and helping them understand their true values. So if they're a mother, for instance, it's kind of like, this is why you want muscle around. This is why I think building muscle is to look at it in different ways and reframe it in different way, where you can play with your daughter and you have more energy to play with your daughter or your son,
Hmm.
and kind of gradually over time people start to think, no, yeah, that's massively important to me because everyone's going to value that. And then it kind of hopefully over time will start to shift the focus and understanding, and then that's going into a realm of nutrition as well. Then from that
Hmm.
standpoint, and even just educating them on, well, if you're still smashing X amount of calories, and let's say you're in a surplus of calories, you're consuming more energy than you're expending, and you're lifting weights, of course you're going to build muscle, like that, which is not a bad thing. But if you're trying to actively be slimmer and look leaner, then that's probably something we need to address from a caloric standpoint at least, and but also have conversations around what type of training they may enjoy. That's another thing where people, females in particular, might say, oh, I don't want to have too much training on my legs, for example. They don't want to feel like the jeans are getting tighter.
Hmm.
These are just conversations where I'll just be like, okay, well, we'll just reduce the potential training volume on your legs, and we'll just give you one hard set on your leg press, for instance, and then we'll focus the rest of the training volume on other areas that you kind of want to do. How does that sound? And then
Yeah.
kind of have those conversations where they're like, yeah, that sounds good. And then over time, once they've built that trust and they understand the benefits a bit more, because I'm constantly like trying to educate my clients, whether I'm sending them a podcast, sending them an article that speaks in their language. Over time, they start to not have these concerns anymore.
And that's something that you doing that, I think, is really, really, really helpful because you're keeping that degree of and not just accountability, but you're giving your clients the chance to see for themselves. Because we know that we can say things till we're blue in the face because they relate to us. They're like, yeah, 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 but that's what you're always going to say. If they can sit back for 5 minutes and read it themselves and go, oh, hang on, someone who has done this study in this university or this team have developed this protocol, they can see it themselves. That helps reinforce that self-education. I've been a big believer through whole my career that self-education when it comes to health and benefits of developing the practices you need is the best way of doing it. So if by you sending them those articles, which I think is fantastic, that really does help them go, oh, hang on, there's multiple sources now that tell me this, that I can see evidence from it, and it will reinforce what you've been saying the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's just kind of helping them build their own autonomy. Really, it's
Hmm.
all the self determination theory, which consists of autonomy and competence. Like I want them to basically be able to make their own decisions and think for themselves and what they think's best. And I'm going to be there to support you. I'm going to be there to kind of guide you the best I can. I've still had clients who've done things that I'm not in line with. For instance, I've had clients that have come in with, we won't get into this can of worms, by the way, with one of the Zoe things on their arm.
Oh yeah,
I've
yeah,
had
I
clients
remember them
do
now.
that who've been training with me for 4 years, and they know what I would think of that. They know what I would say, but I kind of understand how humans work and things like that. And sometimes I just kind of give them information. I wouldn't be one that's be like, oh, get that shit off your arm, what you're doing, this is fucking stupid. Like, I'll kind of let them make their own informed decisions. I'll kind of advise them. I'll educate them around potentially that case blood sugars. I'd send them stuff. I'd say it's perfectly normal that we have spikes in blood sugar, etc., etc., and that you probably don't need to worry about it. You're not diabetic, etc. So I'll say that, but I'll kind of let them make that decision themselves weeks down the line, where they'll probably go, "Yep, yeah, okay, yeah, he was right. I agree. This isn't kind of work for me, or this isn't made for me, and or this is just a bit of a waste of money." And then ultimately down the line, they'll kind of, because we've all done stupid shit. We've all done
Oh
things
God, yeah,
that we kind of. So I just kind of let them make their own decision. All I
hmm,
can do as a trainer is make sure that I'm someone who's sticking to my values as a coach, and
sure,
as long as we're resistance training, as long as if that maybe that might even help you make better informed nutritional decisions because you've got something on your arm. I'm like, sweet, like that. I'm like, placebos are real, so let crack
yeah,
on
it's
a little
true.
bit, and I'm happy. But we'll lift weights, we'll still do our thing, and you'll make your own decision, and I'll support you on whatever you decide to do.
Mm. On the educational front, then, and I'm genuinely curious as to your opinion of this. This is not me setting you up for a point. Why do you think the argument still exists that calories in, calories out is not the path to take for body change?
I
Because
mean,
it's I'm staggered that at 2024 we've supposedly got more knowledge than we've ever had in history. Again,
yeah,
especially when it comes to just the body. Yet
yeah,
people, I've seen personal trainers argue the toss on that conversation.
yeah. It's kind of, I mean, it's with things like that. It's kind of with a lot of the stuff on the podcasts that you'll see on bigger podcasts where they'll have guests on who, and then basically that'll be the kind of the tagline, like calories
Mm.
do not matter.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
what that's going to ultimately do, it's going to draw in people that who've tried to lose weight for many years potentially, and they
Hmm.
kind of want. This is my theory on this. They maybe want another answer, which I completely understand, because if you've tried something and it's not worked for you for whatever reason, yes, we know the principles of why it maybe not worked, but that's why it's obviously a lot deeper. And I agree with the terms of it's deeper than just eat less
Yes.
calories and
Yeah,
move more.
yeah.
Like we're talking about human psychology here, behavior
Hmm.
change. Like it's a simple process, but it's very complicated for people to actually to do. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a case of these are just trying to draw in those individuals who are looking for an answer, and I
Hmm.
don't, and I do feel sorry for those who are just not they're not educated on that side of things potentially, or they're just at a stage of like desperation. So it's going to draw them in. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the trainers who are saying this, I mean, this is kind of law 101 of energy thermodynamics, isn't it? Like it's not a myth, it's a thing. Like, and people can choose not to accept it. I'm kind of past caring whether they accept it or not. Like,
Yeah, yeah, true.
it's just like saying I don't accept resistance training builds muscle. It's
Hmm.
like we know that's wrong. We
Yeah.
know that's the only thing you can really do to build muscle is resistance training and actually placing tension on a muscle. Resistance training, or if you've not done anything, body weight training will be resistance training for you if you kind of new. Even some bands, if you not that, they're still placing tension on a muscle, but it
Yeah,
comes
of
to a
course.
point where you need to make that training more progressively more difficult. So I
Hmm.
think that it's kind of the same thing where people will be like, this doesn't build muscle. Or even now, you're seeing people say this exercise isn't good for your lats, and you're just like, fucking hell. Like it's a crazy one. So I'm kind of at that stage, like where people will always believe what they want to believe, and if it helps you
Hmm.
believe that calories don't matter and it's your hormones, then I'm kind of past that stage of trying to convince you otherwise. Because I think once people have got that strong bias, I'm just like, crack on. As in the past, I try and like maybe fight that. As now, I'm just kind of like, that's absolutely fine. If you think it's that, you think it's that. Just like if you think deadlifts are bad for your back, you think
Hmm.
deadlifts are bad for your back. They probably will be.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
kind of where I'm at with that
Because
stuff.
you come to you come to the sort of like the space already going. If I do this, I'm going to hurt myself.
Exactly, like the biopsychosocial model exists. The
Hmm.
social influences on that, the psychological influences. Yeah, if everyone at work in the office is telling you resistance training is dangerous, why are you doing that? You're probably going to think resistance training is dangerous, even though we know it's not.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, all the athletes throughout the history of time haven't been killing themselves for your entertainment. It's not dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I can show you much more benefits of resistance training than not doing it.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I was doing some notes on this. Again, today's Wednesday, so Monday, of the comparative degeneration of 20, 30 year olds. That's 20 and 30-year-olds, not 20, 30-year-olds, for not doing anything physically. Their physicality declining at what we used to think we'd see in 50-year-olds, just
Yeah.
because people go out of their way almost now to not be physical doing anything,
Mm.
because you can have everything delivered for you. You don't even have to go and traipse around the supermarket. You don't really have to engage in physical labor in any means if you don't want to. You can drive to a car wash. You don't have to get a bucket and sponge out on the weekends. Physicality has been removed so much that physical weakness is now becoming a problem, and all the health problems that come with that. Younger and younger and younger and younger. I mean, I still play competitive rugby, yet there are guys on my rugby team who are saying they're going to have to quit next season because now in their early 40s, their body can't take it.
Yeah.
I'm like, hang on, you're the same age as me. I had a 10-year or 9-year military career, and I've been playing sport aggressively ever since. You're not decrepit. You're choosing to believe because you're not looking after yourself in the best way possible. Your body is aging.
Yeah, it's not so much people are getting older and it's age that's coming to us in many
Mm,
cases. Obviously, to some degree, we're all aging. Yes, as we get older, we're in a less position to be able to potentially build muscle tissue. However, does it mean that we still can't build muscle tissue? Absolutely not.
mm,
Absolutely not. So it's kind of most people kind of stop doing the things. That's what ages people because they don't do what they used to do when they was growing up, where they was jumping, running, picking stuff up, throwing stuff like playing outside with friends and stuff like that. People don't do that, and I know even 30-year-olds who have this mentality of like I know we was having a laugh at the start of the podcast about age and stuff, but they're talking like they're 75 years old, and it's, for me for myself now, like that's what people need to be more educated around, and I think it does come back to this where it's kind of people's barriers to actually doing the thing where it's like, oh, I can't do that because of my back. And it's like
mm-hmm.
your back's probably like that because you don't do that.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Like, I always kind of post that on my social media just to kind of probably rattle people who talk about back pain and who have when someone talks about stuff like that, I just kind of straight away just go, you don't know the biopsychosocial model of pain. You don't clearly understand that. That's absolutely
Hmm.
fine. But I kind of will share a heavy deadlift and be like bulletproof in my back. And it's kind of like people will be like, oh, well, that's really bad. And again, it comes back down to their beliefs, their dogmatic views, and what they've been taught. And it all makes sense. We're all the products of what we've learned, aren't we? It's years and years of learning things from different people, and we kind of make our own decisions of what we believe and what's right. So I understand why people have these kind of views on things like that, and it's up to myself with my clients that I train to try and educate them otherwise, and that not doing this is going to age you much more than actually doing it. And
Hmm.
I'm gonna coach you where ultimately you do get the confidence where you are someone who now feels like you're so resilient and you're so robust because we're humans, we're very robust and we can do this and you can do this. And no matter what age you are, whether you're 30 years old, I've got 60 odd years olds who are nearly 70. I literally constantly tell them, you're an animal, you're a savage, like you're unbelievable, you're so impressive. Like I want to be you when I'm your age, and build people up a little bit, give them the confidence because we can all do this. It's just whether we
Hmm.
choose to believe it or not.
Do you, by chance, follow Eddie Hall on social media?
I do. I think I've got him on my other private one that I have, but I don't really go on that anymore. Is this with his son lifting weights and
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
freaking
yeah, yeah,
out?
yeah. I mean, his kids, I think 11, 12.
I know he's a beast. He literally is a beast, isn't he?
He's a monster, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. He's like overhead pressing like 20 kilogram dumbbells and stuff like that. Like I'm like this guy's. I mean, and again, everyone's freaking out in the comments, right? You see it like everyone's like, "You're a bad parent. You're gonna hurt your child." And
Mm,
again, it's like I actually feel sorry for those with big accounts like that because I feel like because I'm quite reactive, I
hmm.
would hate seeing those comments because I just lose my
Yeah.
mind of being like, "You are absolute idiots. You clearly don't understand this stuff," and that's another um, conversation in itself. In that we again, it's like children training. Should they? Shouldn't they? I heard it
Yeah.
stunts the growth. No, it doesn't. Like
Mm.
your
No,
children
not at
probably
all. I
need to
mean,
lift weights as well. Like
yeah.
nothing wrong with it. Absolutely recommend it. I wish I'd lifted weights when I was playing football as a kid, and I probably wouldn't have been as skinny or whatnot with what I was doing. I would have had more athletic dominance in my
Hmm.
sport for sure. So
Yeah.
it's one of my big regrets that I didn't start it at 10 years old. To be honest with you,
No, I mean, if I had my way, if someone out there, just a passing billionaire, wants to give me a blank check, I will open a school where kids are doing what British private schools used to do, which would be your physicality and your education are parallel. You know, the old British private
100%.
schools always used to be a case of you are required to do extracurricular activities. That is sport, and that is also hiking, orienteering, do part-time military, whatever, as well as academia. We want you to develop into a rounded human being and be healthy.
Yeah, because it correlates with everything.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well, that
same with
was,
the people that I train who talk about work performance. I'm like train, take your
yeah.
creatine if you want potentially improve cognitive function. And they're like, really? I'm like, yes. Like, and it goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Well, that was always the secret. I don't think it does now because they're too busy being woke. But that was always the secret for the higher tier universities in this country, certainly in the States as well. Which is you put that message out there to become an elite person in corporate world, politics,
Mm,
whatever it might be. You need to be a cut above everybody. That's why
yeah,
universities used to produce the elite rugby players, the rowers, everybody else, because these people, male or female, lived that life. They were studying, they were training, they were going to aspire to be the highest achievers that they could be. That's how we used to get our Olympic athletes. It wasn't
yeah,
entirely a base of amateurs. It was a case of you'd have a mixture, but you would get the elite tier because they believed in development.
yeah. No, exactly. And yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, I'm all for that. I really am. Like, I'm all for this with lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's kids resistance training, whether it's older people resistance training, especially older people resistance training, because
Sure.
kids kind of day to day anyway. Typically, most kids will kind of do some general physical activity day to day life, whether it's jumping over a fence and just being stupid in general. Like kids kind of do that.
we never did that, Dave, did we?
No, no, like
Being stupid.
the older population, they're just kind of say get into that decline. So this is why yeah, resistance training and in general is absolutely huge, and keeping power around as we start to
Mm-hmm.
age is something that I'm really passionate about. Really passionate about pushing.
So how I mean, obviously you've got a good reputation and you've got a nice facility in Manchester. How do I'm not going to call them elderly. That sounds like I'm insinuating they're already decrepit. But how do the special populations, as we call them, the senior population, how do they actually respond when they come into a training environment? Because they've probably been removed from that for quite some time if they were in it in the first place.
Really, really well. And interestingly, there's a lady that trains with us. She doesn't train with myself. I've trained her husband. She started resistance training last year, and the year before she had a massive stroke. She was 74. She
Right,
basically started resistance training after a stroke a year later. So
right.
not this July just gone. The previous July she had a stroke. Last July she was resistance training in the gym for the very first time, and she's 75 years old, and it's
Hmm.
just amazing to see. I absolutely love it. Love seeing Wendy. She's called, who's literally just picking a trap bar up. She's on a leg press. She's on a machine row. I'm just like absolutely. I train sometimes when she trains, you see, because she kind of comes in around 11, 12 o'clock. And
Right.
it's really, really amazing to see. And it's just kind of, and I trained her husband as well, Jeff, who's 75. Again, he was someone who seemed to really understand the health benefits. So I do think the message is getting out there. He knew
Mm-hmm.
the importance of like fall risk with the elderly, and that most people when they as they get older they have a decline in muscle mass, and that's typically what makes people fall when they get
Mm-hmm.
older. Is that with that decline in muscle mass, they just can't kind of hold against gravity very well, which is obviously very sad to see, and that's something that I don't want people to go through, especially in the 70s and even in the 60s to some degree, and in the scary kind of statistics after people have had a fall or a hip fracture, the statistics on death a year later are pretty
Yes, I was
alarming.
reading that just the other
Something like
day.
50% or something
Yeah, yeah.
around that, which is fucking scary. That someone
Mm-hmm.
falls and fractures the hip, and a year later they potentially die. I'm
Yes,
like,
yeah.
so what can we do to stop you falling in the first place? And it all comes back to more muscle mass and keeping sarcopenia at arm's length, osteoporosis at arm's length, and actually giving people the skills to perform everyday tasks. I always say to my guy that I train, Roy, that I've trained for years, I post him on my socials all the time. He loves it. It's like getting him ready for whatever life throws at him. So, like even yesterday, we was doing some work with on the box, some conditioning work on just like gradual, continuous step ups and that. And I'm like, Roy, he's going to Barbados in April on an holiday. And I'm like, are you going to be backing out climbing some stairs because of this? Like, get used to it. Step up on this box. You're strong.
Yeah.
You can do this. And he's like hesitant at first and fine. This guy got ran over by a forklift truck 5 years ago and literally nearly had his leg amputated. And he's thriving. He's the fittest he's ever been, and he's nearly 70 years old. And yeah, he really knew he obviously needed to come in and change from other reasons, health reasons and whatnot, being overweight and things. But now I'm talking a lot about this with him as he's an aging population where I'm like, fall risk, get up and down off the toilet, play with your grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really like honing in on this. So every time we train, I'm kind of relating it back to that. Where,
Yeah,
he's
sure.
picking someone off the floor. I'm like, Roy, you literally pick all four grandkids up off the floor with that weight. And he's like, have I? I'm like, yeah, you've just done 100 kg. Your grandkids don't weigh that much. And he's like, fucking hell. I can see like he's relating that to like life. So
Yes, yeah.
it's kind of another potential way that you can just maybe get people more excited about resistance training and relay it in different ways. Because I know we've kind of touched upon that a little bit to actually get them excited about doing the thing rather than it
Mm-hmm.
just be all about, oh, I want to look good. I want to look a certain way. Like those people don't give a fuck about it. And that's why I actually love training them because they don't come in and they're not like, oh, how do I look for a beefer and whatnot? I just want to lose this like little bit of body fat here. They don't give a
Mm-hmm.
fuck, the older people. And I absolutely love them. They're just a different breed anyway.
Yeah.
There's a different kettle of fish. And I absolutely love them because they're training for much more deeper, important reasons that means so much to them. And it also means so much to me that I'm helping them as well.
It's very rewarding as a trainer, isn't it? Because you're helping impart to them. I've come back to this time and again in the podcast, but I always refer to the ultimate goal being quality of life, which I think you've touched on there, which is it tends to be only those coming out of a severe rehab situation or the older population who actually understand what that kind of entails. I think it's the younger people who have got a degree of vanity in what they're trying. I say younger, I mean 20s, 30s, 40s.
Mm.
They have a degree of vanity in what they're doing. They don't necessarily see the value in it, even if they understand it. Like, yeah, I'll get to that when I'm older.
Yeah,
Not a case
yeah,
of if I build a kick-ass posterior chain now and my proprioception's awesome and I'm strong for the next 10 years, I'm pushing all those signs of aging way down the road.
yeah. Which all comes back down to, yeah, that if they want to look younger and that's all well and good, that they've had these vanity goals and stuff, it's like, well, this thing's going to help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. This is what you want to kind of do exactly that. And it's all well and good. People want to train for reasons of body composition. Like most of my clients who come in and start, they want that. Everyone wants to look better naked. Like that is, and I'm totally fine by that.
Sure.
But well, let's add in some. There'll be some other values there of why it really matters to you
Hmm.
outside of you just want to some abs. It's like, why do you want some abs? And we might get to that. So it's just kind of, yeah. I guess it's definitely, as I've done this for many years, I'm obviously now fortunate enough to work with people that I actually enjoy working with. Because when you kind of start, you kind of have to train anyone and everyone
Take
because
all
it's,
comers.
which is great because you learn a lot from them. You learn loads,
Yes.
and I think any trainer who listens to this needs to do that. Like you need to, because your worst clients are the ones that you learn the most from. So I'm all
True.
for that. So, but I love training the people that I train because we have such good conversations, and half of the time it's not even training stuff; it's just life stuff, and I really enjoy it. I learn a lot from my clients
Hmm.
with all aspects of life that we speak about, and it's great. So yeah, I do love training those people who just got a little bit of a deeper reason to
Sure. Yeah.
why they're showing up to the gym to train with me. It's brilliant.
Do you find then that your older clients um, seem to have more, not financially, but personally invested in their sessions? They'll be far less likely, for example, to like cancel or postpone or whatever else. That their attitude is that little bit sharper about the value that they take from it.
Yeah, no, they definitely value it, and I think that's obviously down to myself as well as a trainer
Mm-hmm.
to just keep them motivated to train and keep reiterating why this is so important for them, and then that comes down to other things like making them enjoy the training, making them kind of, like we said before, feel they've got autonomy, they've got competence, they feel part of something, they feel special, as well. So I think that's on me as well a little bit, and over time that kind of builds even more. But obviously you're going to have clients that I've trained who are not like that, who basically, they pay for a personal trainer and they think, oh, well, I'm going to get the results now that I want, and I'm not going to have to put in any of the work because I've got a trainer, and that's how it kind of works. And yeah, you can typically see that with people that if you're obviously getting people cancelling sessions, not showing up and stuff like that, I think that's something that at this stage of my career, I'm just kind of like, you definitely not, it's not going to work training with you, and we're not going to get on very well because I want people that I just want people that are just going to work hard and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, be coachable in essence. And I know you've worked in Dubai, I've worked in Dubai. There was probably a lot of clients who didn't show up 4 times a week because they just didn't value it because they had that much money that it didn't mean anything to them. So going back to before when we spoke about training like actresses and actors and athletes, that all the trainers want to train for some reason, these
Mm-hmm.
multimillionaires and whatnot, these flashy celebrities, like they're typically your worst clients because they don't really truly value it. From my experience dealing with people in that category, and I would much rather train the person who's literally like really putting all the money they can together to invest in this.
Mm-hmm.
Who's literally like, I wouldn't treat anybody different in what I do. I don't care if I trained the king or someone who works at McDonald's who saved up a year to work with me. Like you're getting treated exactly the same. And if anything, the latter is the person that I'm going to be like, this person, it means a lot to them. And I'm going to give them absolutely everything that I've got.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of maybe a bit of a tangent there, but that's kind of where I'm at with stuff like that. It's I don't ask for much from the people that I work with. Only we just work together. We're a team. It's collaborative. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a dictator. We're gonna we're gonna work together. We're gonna do this, and whatever problems you face, I'll try and help you the best I can. And if I can't, I'll be open. I'll be honest. And there's some people that I've not been able to help, and I'm
Yeah.
not ashamed of saying that. And I'll try to learn from that for next time a person like that maybe comes through the door. So I always look at what I can do better as well, for sure, to
Mm-hmm.
to keep these, like you said, back to your question of people showing up and showing valid interest in what I
Yeah.
do.
No, I mean, I'll echo that alongside of what you said there, because take out my clients from the world of motorsport, which I know is not a common client base for personal trainers and coaches. I would sooner have, and I know that the happiest and most lucrative personal trainers I've ever known are not the ones who go chasing the individuals that they think will be the glamour clients. It's the ones who fill their diary for all the hours they want to work, not every hour of the day, because they've got the ability to fill their diary to go, right, Gen Pop, when do I want to start working in the morning? When do I want to finish? Fill that diary up of just Mr. and Miss Jones, people who, like you say, are invested because they're coming to improve their quality of life, to get something from this that will carry them, into the next stage of their life in a happy, healthier state. And they will show up and they will work hard and they are loyal. And the word of mouth as a professional was fantastic, but also you're getting a genuine productive um, outgoing to your client because they become genuinely hooked on looking after themselves.
Yeah, without a doubt, I'd take take those clients all day, and yeah, I'm very grateful for the clients that I've got who literally fit that mold for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's why when we were talking, because we were chatting before we start recording. I would ideally hope to get in to start doing workshops if I can with some with adults, but also with the younger adults, teenagers, to start to go, right, I'm not going to preach to you because you're not going to listen to me, but we're going to do some things, and I'm going to talk to you for a bit about X, Y, and Z, the factors of life here that will instill in you some good practices. Because, like you said, look, the theme through our conversation has been education. It doesn't have to be a finger poking exercise from someone in front of a room, but help people see, like, hey, guess what? Do you want to be able to get out of that chair for the next 40 years comfortably? Carry the things in from the car, like you say, play with your kids, your grandkids, go off doing some kind of funky holiday with your partner, hiking, whatever it is. You need to have the health to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's kind of how I will reframe a lot of the stuff for who I'm working with now, and actually
Mm-hmm.
align it with their values, because that's all it comes down to. It just comes
Yeah,
down to values, processes, and outcomes. Like most people just have
absolutely. Yeah.
these outcomes, which is fine, but it's more broad. Like I want to lose weight, but it's kind of all right. Then we need to look at the processes that will get that outcome. How
Mm-hmm.
will we lose weight? But then deeper than that, to align with the processes, because if you're failing to do the processes time and time again, there's likely a disconnect between that and your actual values. So if you're like trying to diet down, for instance, in that example, but you much more value spending time and going out with your husband every weekend or wife every weekend and having a drink and eating out, if you value that, I guarantee it'll win every time. So maybe we just need to find some different processes that
Mm-hmm.
align with your values and have a look at setting either a new outcome or just managing your expectations with that outcome. But that's all
Yeah.
it comes down to. What do everyone value? And
Like,
everyone's different.
like you say, that hierarchy of values. If you care about something enough, then you make the effort. Like you said, you wouldn't ever not take your child to the doctors or your pets or whatever else because you wouldn't dare not do it. But that disconnect between your own personal value is often what causes a lot of the problems. It's what we as trainers have to try and get you over that hump to
Yeah,
invest in yourself.
yeah, 100%, without a doubt.
Yeah. I tell you what, bud, we said we'd aim for about an hour and we pretty much got exactly there, which is fantastic.
Perfect.
Um, it,
No, I think
it's
we've
been,
covered some
I
good
would love to
stuff
talk
there.
to you longer, but I'm aware that you're a busy guy and I don't want to keep you from your lovely girlfriend when she gets home from work. I am going to get up to Manchester at some point in the near future because we've known each other for a while. I've not actually met in person yet.
Yeah, no, definitely. When you're in Manchester, for sure, give me a
I'll give you a
shout.
shout. Okay, so we'll end this one the way we end all of them and the way we ended the last one. I've still got your details, of course, but to anybody watching or listening to this who doesn't know where they can find David Flowers in Manchester, please email, Instagram, where can they find you?
Yeah, pretty much my most active place is my social media and Instagram. So at Coach David Flowers. That's pretty much where you'll find me. My email's info at Coach David Flowers as well. If you've got any questions on any of the stuff that we spoke about today, I'm more than happy to answer anyone's questions about that. That's pretty much where you'll find most of my content and general wafflings around all things training.
Thanks, buddy. Oh, I tell you what, if you don't know them off the top of your head, please text or email me, and I'll add them to the bottom of this on YouTube. Your girlfriend does a lot of work in nutrition, and she's very, very, very good. I'm impressed by social media. I would like to speak to her one day, but that's a different topic. So yeah, please get me her information. I will add it onto this when I post it as well.
100% will do, for sure.
All
Cheers for
right.
having me, mate.
Okay. So I'll say cheerio to you in a sec properly, but for now, thanks very much.
No worries. Thank you.